I do want to get your thoughts on why stocks in the U.S. are so high. Why?
One, political risk is never well integrated into equity prices because you don't have a specific timeline around them. And secondly, because the Fed and all the central banks globally have been acting incredibly strongly. They haven't been coordinated, but they have been rowing in the same direction. I think that's provided a lot of confidence. I am certainly much more pessimistic about where the global economy is heading than a lot of the people, the analysts I've seen on the stock market, as someone who focuses on domestic and global politics. But, you know, historically, it's not surprising to see a disconnect like this.
Some fascinating commentary in your note from the 1st of June, particularly surrounding American politics and the president's tactics involving coronavirus, the racial divide versus law and order. I'm going to set that aside for this conversation and go to the question of China. How do you see America's relations with China evolving over the next 5 years? And does it all depend, basically, on whether President Trump wins re-election?
Well, it certainly doesn't all depend on that. Perhaps the only major foreign policy issue that there's broad bipartisan agreement on is that there should be a tougher line policy on China. Now, whether it should be America primarily by itself or whether it should be more multilateral is an argument that many of the Trump administration and an erstwhile Biden administration would have. But let's keep in mind, if you want to ask where there's been a bigger change in the last 5 years with President Trump from Obama or with Xi Jinping in China, it's very clearly Xi Jinping, and not even close. Belt and Road, AI by 2030, ending autonomy for Hong Kong, anti-corruption domestically, massive consolidation of power, ending of term limits. I mean, this is a dramatic change for what China looks like domestically and internationally. I mean, Trump tweets very differently than Obama does. But I mean, in terms of his actual policies internationally, when you get rid of all the rhetoric, there's a lot more constraint on what any American president would want to do because of the balance of powers, because of the deep bureaucracy, because of whistleblowers and all the rest. So I really don't think we should overstate how much importance November has. Rather, we should focus on the fact that these two countries that haven't trusted each other for a long time are increasingly decoupling their interdependence. And that means that the level of conflict and confrontation is going to go up.
I want to get to Hong Kong in just a moment, but I'm going to pause here and ask you to comment, if you might, on the possibility, however remote it might be, that the Phase 1 trade deal with China might not eventuate. You see it as a possibility, a probability?
You know, senior folks in the White House tell me 50-50. Right now, their focus is, can you imagine the Chinese getting away with, this virus and not having to pay for it after covering it up for a month while their Chinese were traveling all over the country and all over the world? So that they know this is a very useful position for them to have in the run up to the elections. And if they didn't take a tough line policy on China, they'd get whacked by the Biden folks. Of course, if they break the deal, the reality is that Biden and Trump's opposition is going to say, what, you signed this deal and it lasted for how long because it was so weak? And why did you get in bed with Xi Jinping, your buddy, to begin with? So, you know, that plus the economic hit makes it harder to keep the deal. But the Chinese are not buying anywhere close to the level of ag they promised they were going to. And on every other front but the Phase 1 deal, these two sides are going at each other. So, you know, when you look at that in the context of the run up to the election, it's clearly going to get worse.